The Fly 2 has Martin Brundle, son of Seth and Veronica, find a cure for his fly disease. So this is my second time watching this film. I didn't watch this film for the longest time, just because I didn't know how they could follow up The Fly, with at the time being 2 years ago, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and now it being my favorite horror movie of all time. I didn't know how well this movie really was gonna be. And I can say it's actually pretty decent. Fun fact, Gary Chalk is in this movie, which he's from Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins as the principal. He's in Leprechaun Origins, and he's in Freddy vs. Jason as one of the cops. Leprechaun Origins, he's one of the townsfolk or whatever, so that's pretty cool. So, the positives on this film are, it tells a pretty interesting story with Martin Brundle having an exhilarated growth spurt, and so that was pretty interesting. It was interesting that he liked Beth as a friend, and then also the industry wanted Martin to turn into a fly. I thought all of it was actually pretty interesting and pretty engaging. I like it that this movie does something different than Return of the Fly, the original sequel to the original The Fly. It has Martin against people, and I thought it was pretty interesting. The effects, just like The Fly from 1986, are just as great. The scab on Martin's arm was pretty good, and it's gross. The cocoon is pretty cool, and the actual, dare I say, fly creature, it's much more of just like a generic monster. So I'd say the generic monster design is cool, so I do like that. So all the effects are pretty good. I'd say they're pretty solid effects. Maybe they don't look as awesome as The Fly to follow up that, but I think the effects are still pretty good. And the last positive is the kills are great. The one guy who gets his face melted with fly acid is awesome and gross. The elevator kill was gory and graphic, so there's some slashery enjoyment where people die who have wronged Martin. Then Anton gets his just desserts by being kept alive in a mutated state, just like the dog in the beginning. So that was pretty satisfying. So if you're into slasher movies, if you want like much more of kind of like a slasher take on the Fly franchise, watch this film, because now the kills don't really happen until the last third of the movie, but it's worth it. So and of course the effects on all the kills are really good as well. So it's really interesting, and it was an engaging third act. Now on to the negatives. The first negative is I find it a little disturbing that Martin and Beth make love, because Martin is technically only 5 years old. I don't know how to explain it. He looks like a 28-year-old, so he looks like a grown man, but, and mentally, he's a grown man, but, I mean, like, age-wise, he is 5 years old, so it was a little disturbing. Something that was going to be a negative, until I looked it up, I didn't think it made sense that Martin went into a cocoon because he's a fly. That seemed much more of like a caterpillar thing, but I looked it up, and I don't remember what it was, but the bug that turns into a fly apparently does go into a cocoon, and then a fly comes out. So at first I thought that was going to be a negative, because I don't think flies do that until I looked it up. So that was interesting. So chalk that up to another positive of it actually being pretty realistic to a real fly, so I kind of liked that. But another real negative is the thing that Martin turns into isn't a fly creature at all. I don't think it looks like a fly or a fly-human hybrid. It's just a generic monster. There's no essence of a fly in that thing. It just looks like a generic monster, and then people try and kill the monster. So that was kind of unsatisfying. And the last negative is they also don't have Beth's realization that Martin is 5. Because you would think that would be a big part of the movie. But it really isn't. It's just Beth never knew about that in the end of the film, or maybe at the end of the film she does know about that, and she's totally fine with that. I don't know if they're in a relationship. I don't know if it's much more of like a mother-son type relationship. I would imagine it's much more of like a romantic relationship with them by the end, but they never have her have the realization that she now knows Martin is 5 years old. So in any other modern movie, I feel like they would actually make a very big plot point about that. But in this, they don't. So that was kind of unsatisfying. That's it for negatives. In the end, this is fairly entertaining. It has an interesting story, and it's fairly watchable. The third act is actually pretty entertaining. So The Fly 2 is actually pretty good. So I do enjoy The Fly 2. That's my review on The Fly 2. Thanks for watching.